I'm Maya Irizarry. This is a great topic. A lot of people are struggling with hiring these days. And so this is something that's near and dear to me. I have a method to the madness, and I know a lot of people get stuck when it comes to hiring and knowing what to ask. So that's why I like to focus on this subject. You're not hiring a resume, the 5 C's of building strong teams. If you're a hiring manager and you interview often, I'm Maya Irizarry, and my company is called Solutions by Maya. I want to help companies create predictability in their hiring processes, and that's why I created this. My company's motto is where aligned teams drive results. We want to make sure that people understand what they're supposed to be doing. And in that, it starts with the onboarding, how you recruit people, how you bring them in, setting expectations for what you're hoping to get out of the right applicant because you know what the job requires. So with that being said, have you ever hired someone who looked perfect on paper but didn't work out? And you can be proactive in the chat. I see here, Christine is an individual contributor. She's a director of financial reporting and analysis. So nice. You're looking at a software company to work with. Very cool. So you want to know the expectations, how to set expectations with them. So have you ever hired someone or a company who looked perfect on paper but didn't work out for you? You can type yes in the chat, no in the chat. Is it the skills? Is it the attitude? Is it the cultural fit? Have you ever made a bad hire before? You can type yes or no in the chat. Did you feel like it was a waste of your time and resources? In this talk today, we're going to speak about how resumes don't tell the whole story. They could have great credentials and it won't guarantee the performance. And most small business owners don't have formal hiring processes. So if you think back to all of the places where you've worked or contributed in the past, and you've onboarded yourself or you've had to hire someone else, has it usually been kind of like a shotgun quick draw? Someone's coming in for an interview because we have to fill a quick spot and we don't have anything in place. We just threw something up as a job ad because we need someone to fulfill the role that's been always taken care of in the past, or we're overflowing in one area. We have to bring on more help. And so that's why we're hiring. You may realize that hiring mistakes do get costly, right? Compare the resume to a used truck. When you're looking for a used truck, right, or a vehicle, you're looking for something that's in great condition. A lot of the time we're looking online nowadays. Low miles on the odometer. What else? What are we looking for when we're looking for a used vehicle? Is it a favorite color? Is it a favorite body style? It just drives, gets you to and from, right? So nice tires or rims for the fancy people. Slick description on the listing with all the bells and the whistles and hopefully no incidents or accidents. And you have high expectations. And so the resume is the same kind of way, right? It's well designed to sell the applicant. The skills appear as a match for the opening because they've probably nicely designed it that way. It's a similar industry to what your industry is, so they match, and they're a perfect match on paper, right? So it's a sure hire unless the person bombs the interview. So I always say, don't be deceived by that. And that's why we have the 5 C's of building strong teams, so that we can be more effective at how we review how that works. So the first thing is character, right? Who are they really? Their work ethic, their integrity. Are they accountable? Someone with high skills but poor character can be toxic to your team. Have you ever had that person that they shined in all other avenues wherever they came from, and they're expected to be a superstar, but their work ethic isn't to standard, or they don't align with what your company stands for, it won't help them be any better or make a great impact with your company if they don't mesh. So they have the integrity, they have reliability, they have the values. And if they don't, that's a red flag, right? They'll say things like they'll excuse make or finger point, and they'll say all the right things on the interview, but they won't follow through. So on a piece of paper or on your computer, jot down what are 3 non-negotiable values or behaviors you expect from anyone who works with you. This way you start to outline what your expectations are or what you won't tolerate on an interview. Input to how they would handle a situation if it was with your company. And the good thing is to give scenarios based on what's commonly occurring in your company. So you would say, tell me about a time you made a mistake at work. How did you handle it? So that you can get a gauge on their character. Do they blame someone? Do they take accountability? And it reveals their ownership, their honesty, and a growth mindset. Another question would be, what values are most important to you in a working relationship? And why that works is you see if their values align with yours. And if they don't, you start to understand where there could potentially be some challenges if they were brought aboard to work with you. It's really important that you know what you value, because if you think back on times that you've worked with people and you probably didn't mesh so well, maybe it was because you valued different things or you saw things from a different perspective. So you want to think, am I being too tough, or am I just expecting something simple that someone should come in with? Am I willing to make concessions for them coming in from the beginning, being distracted or not being attentive to the interview? If they're not showing how important it is to them in that moment, maybe you'd want to stop and ask, say, hey, it appears you're distracted. We never know what's going on in people's lives, and some kind of incident could occur, and they could say, I'm sorry, something happened before I got here. And then it won't impact your thoughts on them as much as if they're like, no, I'm here with you. And then they continue to move on, expecting that you answer questions that are generic and go through the interview and go through the motions. So you want it to be conversational. You want to get an idea of how they would respond to things. And so based on character, it would show you how they would react in situations working with you. So have you ever worked with someone who didn't share your values? How did you handle that? That's a question you would ask them. And it would help you get some insight into what they value. What kind of value was it? Why did it not resonate with you? How did it make you feel? And how did you handle it? It tests also how they deal with ethical tension. When they're in a situation where they have to perform something for work, but how someone's responding is not in line with what you would expect. Has anyone ever faced this? And so the second C is competence. Can they actually do the job? We want to know, do they have skills versus experience? How many times have you seen people with a wealth, many years of working with a company? Did they move up in different roles? Did they just do the same types of tasks? Did they jump around to different jobs every few months or every year, which didn't allow them to get a stronghold up? I've been working as a leader in many different industries on levels. And I found that there are a lot of times in most of the places where I've worked, it takes at least a year to really fully understand the scope of your work. Maybe in 90 days, you learn what's expected of you. In 6 months, you're probably learning how to actually perform the duties on your own, unassisted. But then to really get a hang of what you're doing, it takes about a year. So if someone is not in an establishment for more than a year, it may raise an eyebrow, because how much have they really absorbed of the responsibilities? How much ownership were they fully able to take? Now you can ask the questions, Why was it only 1 year here, 1 year there? And maybe they were seeking advancement because of the monotony, and maybe they weren't seeking the level of work that is to the caliber of their expertise. But then that gives you some insight into, are they committed? Are they able to stick things out and problem solve? Because having to jump to the next because they're not finding what they're looking for, you really want to get keen on what is it that you're trying to accomplish. If you were to come aboard here, we'd really love it for you to stay long term. So what would that require of us so that that's that kind of environment for you? So competence isn't about how many years they've worked. It's about how they've learned what they've learned and how have they applied it. So we want to ask questions on how they've demonstrated abilities. Do they have the ability to do the level of work at the level that you need? Can they demonstrate the past performance in the particular area that you need them? Now, if any of you can relate, please say so. But I've worked with hiring people, and we're so desperate to hire for a role, even if we're not capable of training people. Even if we're not in a position to, we will wear ourselves thin and hire people just to fill the void and hope that they can rise to the occasion. The more that we're able to understand the role in front of us and what it requires, we need to be honest with ourselves as a hiring manager to really know, does it make sense to hire someone who doesn't have the experience because they have a skill set that will just help them learn nuances of the job in terms of like the lingo and but the motions that they've done in the past could fall in line with the same type of activities that are required for the job? Or is this job going to require a ton of training and you're setting yourself up for failure because you don't have the time capacity? Yeah, they seem good enough. And we're so desperate, right? We've been going through resumes. We don't have the time in the day. We have to keep up with our job responsibilities, but then we have to still do the research. And we're at the mercy of the market that's in front of us for the resumes, right? So it's whoever did apply at the time of our need. And so you don't always get that perfect match, but you can ask really good questions to get keen and really get better at understanding what you're looking for so you can be a better selector of talent. So with that being said, let's also list 3 must-have skills for your next hire. Do any of you know what those skills should be for your next hire? So examples of skills for your next hire: someone who has the ability to answer the phones with a courteous tone and sound like they're smiling on every call. Okay, Spanish speaker. At certain roles, it's required. Certain roles, Spanish is preferred. I know I'm working with an organization right now. We are looking for a logistics specialist. This is someone who plays a role between accounting and managing the mechanic shop and managing the vendors that they buy repair items and they need to communicate with. So, but this person needs to be a Spanish speaker because the mechanics are Spanish speaking. So it really wouldn't work out unless someone could communicate well. But we could get someone who's an English speaker who's very well versed at Google Translate and is willing to put themselves out there to translate every time they need to do something and get on a level with the mechanics as they need to. But then other jobs require that they communicate effectively in Spanish. So it all depends, right? So anyone else have must-haves for your next hire? Any skills that they must have other than Spanish speaker? Good communication? But how do you gauge on good communication between the team members and the customer? You would want to ask them questions of like customer service. How would you handle a situation? If we have people coming into the office every day and you're also answering the phone, how do you provide great customer service while completing a task at your desk? Or how do you manage to prioritize and still give the face time to the people that walk into the establishment? That's how I would ask the question about good communication and being a good team member with customer service. So here are competence interview questions that you may want to ask. Can you walk me through a time in a recent project where you had to learn something new or solve a tough problem? Problem solving is great because it gives you also an idea of how they think, what they think about doing first, and you can ask them to walk you through the steps of how they would problem solve something. And the greatest thing is if you can tell them a common challenge that you face in your organization, and they would tell you how they would think through handling that kind of problem. I've had people say flat out, I'm sorry, I don't know your industry, so I really wouldn't know how I would approach it. And I would say to them, well, through your own logic, however you think, give me an idea of how you think you would handle this. Some people, they can't think beyond what they know, and that'll be an indication that they're not a fit for you. And then some people, they may not have the industry experience, but they have a way of problem solving that is thorough enough that they will get the answers they need in the process, even if they don't know them outright or have the experience previously. So why it works, it evaluates real-world skill application and adaptability. We want people to adapt. A lot of us work in the roofing and construction industries and in materials and distribution. So with that being said, how many moving parts are always happening at one given time? How do we handle that, right? So we want to be able to understand that the person in front of us can manage to adapt their focus however they need to handle whatever's occurring and commonly occurs in the workplace. So I'm sure you can speak to that. We have stuff that happens all the time that we can give examples of. And if you're asking these questions and you don't wait till after you've hired them to find out, you're going to be in a better position to be successful. So what's one accomplishment you're especially proud of and why? See if they're willing to boast about themselves. We could see what their technical skill is, what their strengths are, or are they someone who likes to talk highly of themselves and they're not able to talk you through how they can demonstrate it? Maybe that's an indicator that they're not the right fit because they can't tell you how or walk you through how they would do something. Or they can walk you through the whole process of how they would handle something and show you their strengths and show that they're confident in what they do and they're excited about it. I mean, when it comes to roofing and construction, a lot of people on the outside, they don't realize how exciting it is to us, right? It may seem like just sweat and building materials, right? So the next question, if I gave you a hypothetical task, how would you approach it? And so this goes back to how would you handle a situation? If they can walk you through it, that gives you an indication to how you're able to see how they can handle it themselves. So why it works. You have scenario-based responses, and it gives you insights into their technical skills or their lack thereof. I like to look at transferable skills, how a person is able to adapt stuff that they've done in previous roles to the application of what your role requires. If they're able to do that successfully, then that puts you in a position to actually get a better fit for you. You don't always want to hire the same people doing the same things who have industry experience, because how can they be creative or how do they come up with innovative ideas? Sometimes you can, but sometimes when you have people who are working in the same industry and seeing the same things and having the same conversations, it's hard for them to be innovative. But if they come from another environment like myself, I wasn't in roofing, call it 8 years ago. Prior to that, I was in staffing and recruiting, but I knew staffing and recruiting in another way from another realm. It was in the healthcare field. And then I was able to bring that thought to roofing, and it allowed me to expand and have a better retention method, because I had a methodology for how I recruited and hired people, but they didn't understand it in the environment that I was brought into. So I was able to highlight those strengths and apply it in another area of expertise. And just in the end, I had to learn what are the requirements in the different roles for a project manager, for a field worker, for, and adapt what I was screening for to the people that I needed to hire for the roles. So the third C is capacity. Do they have the room to stretch? And can they handle the level of work today? And can they grow tomorrow? And I know that a lot of people are looking for the immediate fit today, but if you can see potential for other things that people can do and have it in mind for the projects that you anticipate needing help with in the future, then you're benefiting by gaining on the person's experience now, but then how much they're able to contribute in the future for you because of other skills or knowledge that they may have. So a strong hire isn't just going to be good now. They need to be able to stretch. So let's say I always talk about the front desk receptionist. So someone in a previous role that I had, we always groomed from the front desk. That was the career path. They started at the front desk and then they moved to every other role in the company, whether it be in sales or in project management or in marketing, depending on the skills they brought to the table. But we were always looking for people who could go beyond just answering phones, just providing customer service, just passing things along, just being able to check on files and pass them along to the next department. So if you can understand the skill set and the abilities of the people, and you're able to see how much they can stretch further for your anticipated growth needs, then you're winning as well. So they have the time, they have the energy, and they have the attention to deliver consistently. So here's the next self-check. Am I overloading my existing help without realizing it? So answer that question. Do you have people who report to you that you're overloading right now? Is it an indicator that you need to hire? That you need support? Or do we have anyone? Okay. Or do you see that someone is only able to deliver on what they were hired for, and you needed additional help because they've reached their capacity? So questions dealing with capacity. What does your current workload look like, and how do you prioritize tasks? So based on the work that they're currently doing, wherever they are or in their previous role, what does it look like? How do you prioritize tasks? How do you receive your work? You can see if they have bandwidth, and you can see if they need to be told what's coming next, or if they know on their own what to do next in the activities for the day. Tell me about a time when you had too much on your plate. What did you do? So if you have some insight to how they would handle the situation, you can understand their level of stress and stress management. Can anyone relate to this?
Hey Maya, how do you determine whether it's like a capacity issue or like when you're onboarding somebody and they hit a wall but it's earlier than you expected for what that role requires? How do you tell the difference between if it's the wrong fit, like if they have the will, they
Right.
don't have
Not the skill or the bandwidth. Do you have an example that you're comfortable sharing, or?
well, like if you're onboarding somebody and you're giving them what you expected for the role, but then they probably don't. I don't know if it's they don't like those items or they just don't. aren't comfortable with them? And how do you know when it's time to cut bait and find the right person instead of trying to make the role fit for them?
So I feel like that's kind of loaded because there are different things at play. And when I'm talking to a lot of with different business owners that I work with, many times we believe because we told them, you know, this is on the job description, this is what's required of your role, et cetera, that people know when to apply the theories and how to apply them. And then there are some people who are hesitant. And I think that's where the disc is really good because you can understand where someone is a risk taker or they're naturally cautious and steady and they're going to wait till someone tells them it's right versus they'll take the risk and you know, apologize later. But it really depends on how you've explained what they're supposed to do. And usually there's a theory I go by. It's three T's. It's teach. So I'm going to assume they're new, they're onboarding, they're not grasping it or they didn't deliver how I expected. So Christine, did you understand what I assigned you to do at this project? And then if you're like, yeah, I understood, I handled it like this. Well, I was expecting this result instead. So is there an area of opportunity that I need to teach the person up to the occasion so that they could try it again? Or is it so severe that, you know, but then I go back to what I said in the beginning, if there's not a value alignment and the person's not a believer in how the company does it in the first place, they're going to come in with an arrogance like I've done this in another realm and I'm going to do it however I do it, and then you're going to have to deal with it. If it's just an earnest, they need more development, then you'll catch that in one or two attempts to correct the behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you, Maya.
Yeah. And then, so I said the three T's, right? So it's teach. And then a lot of us get into the tolerate stage where we start to tolerate behaviors that we would not otherwise accept. And then we start to pass that work along to the person who's our hardest, best worker, overloading them because of someone else's lack of ability or their lack of will, then affecting the morale.
Right. Okay.
So then the last T is terminate. If you can't teach them up to the occasion and you find yourself tolerating something that is not acceptable, then it's the best bet, even if it's if you're saying, oh, it's going to cause me to be short-staffed, the person's not they're not a team player anyway. They're not helping you. And sometimes, yeah, and sometimes people feel relieved that they no longer have to carry that burden for someone else not being a willing participant or their inability to perform. So another question is, how many clients or projects do you usually work on at one time? And this is kind of tricky because some people will go ahead and they'll talk about what they're able to do, but you want to ask about size too, because small projects at quantity or larger projects could be different, right? So if you're doing a $10,000 project versus a $100,000 project versus $1 million project, they may take maybe similar components to performing the work, but how much effort and how much time do they need to put into each one, and how well can they manage that? Oop. Am I going backwards? There we go. So next, chemistry, the fourth C. Do they fit the team dynamic? So you have collaboration, communication, and adaptability. You can train for skills, and this is what I was talking about earlier, but you can't train someone to respect and value your team. How well someone fits in with your communication and work style. So you want to get an understanding of how they like to work. And that's something that when we're interviewing, we want to know, because we also know who's going to be managing them, whether we're on the HR side of things that we're supporting the manager, and we know how that manager manages, or as the manager yourself, you should be asking, how they like to work and give them an idea of what it's like to work with you. You avoid headaches later on to find out. And so I also like to use the DISC or personality insights to identify common friction points so that I can question them on an interview and say, this indicates you get stressed out when things like this occur. In this role, you're going to be required to do A, B, C, D, and it entails being in contact with that kind of behavior regularly. It doesn't look like that would be something that you would appreciate because it stresses you out. Help me understand how I may be wrong in making that assessment. So the next thing is share 2 traits that describe your ideal teammate. So that's for your self-assessment. Because understanding how an ideal teammate will be to work with, whether collaborating with work, being able to hold and take on their own workload so that you're not inundated with additional work, manages time and projects together, etc. Does anyone want to share the 2 traits of your ideal teammate? I'll go into the questions here for chemistry. Describe your ideal work environment or team dynamic. How do you work best with people, right? See if their style complements yours. A lot of nowadays, people want to work with people they like. It's not the old days where you get the hours, you put your head down and just do the work. People want to have joy in the work that they do. They want to feel that they make a contribution and they feel valued. So assess this on an interview. If you bring in someone who's an Eeyore into the company, that's going to affect the morale of your whole team if they're not happy and wanting to do their best when they come in and the work doesn't align with them. How do you like to receive feedback? Now, this question allows you to see if they're coachable and how open they are to receiving information. So tell me about a team or a client relationship that didn't go well. What happened and what did you learn? I keep going backtracking. So this also assesses their emotional intelligence, which is a topic I like to talk about as well. And with the emotional intelligence piece, understanding their professionalism. If they're self-aware, if they're aware of the social factors, and they're able to speak to being a student and learning, that shows that when something needs to be learned in the workplace, that they're going to participate and they're going to make a contribution by looking it up or learning about it and improving themselves. So the last C is course. Are they aligned with your vision? Do they share your company's mission and long-term direction? And this is important for business owners, for managers to attach themselves to where the company's trying to go with their goals. And if they do so very well, then the employees are able to follow suit and allow their vision for their personal future to line up with the future of the company. If they don't believe in where you're going, they're not staying very long. So write 1 sentence describing your business direction in 1 year. That will be your self-assessment for the course. And if you'd like to share, you can add it in the chat. So course interview questions are, what are your professional goals over the next year or 2? Now, I don't like to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's very open-ended, but where are you trying to grow? As a company, we should have in place goals to help you on your career path. and how you can weave through the opportunities within our organization. And so it's really good for us to know, what are your goals? Because if you are everyone has seasons in their life. If you're in a season where you just started a family and you need to get your bearings, and right now your responsibility is to come to work, do as best of a job as you can, and go home to your family, great. There's some people who've been doing the same thing for a long time, or who are eagles and want to soar and run through and grow to the highest level. We want to see that, so that we can understand, how do we set expectations and goals in accordance to where you're trying to go. And it also assesses how they're moving or plan to move in line with where your business is going, or where your company is, and where you're trying to go with your company. Why are you interested in working with me or this business? You want to see motivation and alignment. I just had a phone screen for a company today, and it was a woman. She was a civil engineer in her country, and she said that her goal, when she saw the job ad, she's working at Publix right now, and she saw our job ad, and she thought it was amazing that she could have an opportunity to work in logistics and to work in everything that she's done before in her country. Right now in Publix, she's not fulfilling that motivation or alignment and growth with what she personally feels is her career goal and her skill set. So when she saw the job ad for the job that we're interviewing for, she was ecstatic that there was something in line with what her skill set is and would allow her to thrive. She moved to the country because she got married and moved with her husband. So it wasn't something like she came over for a career shift. So another question is, what kind of projects or missions get you excited to show up and do your best at work? And that's a great question too, because I'm sure we've all tried to be involved in community impact projects. And some people are really into it, to being, selfless and wanting to help for the sake of helping. And some people, they like to help, but it's not their passion to just help for the sake of helping people. And so they don't spend their time doing community projects like some others would. And so this reveals their intrinsic motivation and long-term potential for whatever projects you're thinking of doing as a company, and allows you to see how they fall in line with what you need of them for their role, the course that we're moving on as a company, and for the success of us all. So my call to action for you before making your next hire is to ask yourself, are they truly the right fit, or is it just a great resume? Do you know the role and requirements and effective questions to help you assess the true fit for your organization? And is your team equipped to effectively source, recruit, and hire in order to nurture a cohesive culture? And so let's get started if you're ready. Any questions? I thank everyone for joining me today.